The Palantir is no longer a relic of sorcery. It is the modern technology of our era.
Welcome to A World with AI. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating story that spans more than 500 years. It's all about how one of the world's oldest institutions went from, well, hunting heretical magic to writing ethical code for artificial intelligence. Now, I know what you're thinking. Demonic pacts and black box algorithms, what could those possibly have in common? Well, today we're comparing how the Catholic Church confronted these two powerful, mysterious, and world-changing forces, one in the late Middle Ages and one today. And what it shows us is a pretty dramatic evolution in how to deal with the unknown. Okay, let's dive right in. We're starting in the 15th century. This was a time of immense social and religious anxiety. The Church was facing what it saw as a new and frankly terrifying demonic threat that seemed to be spreading across Europe: witchcraft. So how did they respond to this threat? They literally wrote the book on it. It was a systematic and, honestly, terrifying manual, the Malleus Maleficarum, which means the hammer of witches. This book, published in 1487, wasn't just a bunch of superstitions. Oh no. It was a step-by-step guide for identifying, prosecuting, and ultimately executing people accused of witchcraft. Now, what's really fascinating here is how this laid out a whole system of belief and prosecution. The Malleus turned sorcery from a simple folk belief into heresy, a crime against God himself. It was also deeply misogynistic, arguing that women were weaker and therefore way more likely to make pacts with the devil. And here's the kicker. It received a papal bull of approval. That's an official decree from the Pope, which gave this witch-hunting guide the full weight of the Church's authority. All right, let's jump forward a bit to the 17th century. The threat now is no longer seen as demonic magic, but a whole new kind of magic altogether: empirical science. And this, as you probably know, would lead to one of the most famous clashes between faith and reason in all of history. And this timeline just lays out that clash so perfectly. Galileo, who was a devout Catholic, basically argued that the Book of Nature and the Book of Scripture couldn't contradict each other, but his defense of a sun-centered universe was seen as a direct attack on the Church's authority. And the result? He was tried for heresy in 1633 and silenced for the rest of his life. It actually took the Church over 350 years to formally admit it had made a mistake. So, while the Church won the battle by silencing Galileo, it was what you'd call a Pyrrhic victory. Sure, they won the information war in the short term, but the whole affair created this deep, lasting rift between science and faith. It seriously damaged the Church's credibility and kicked off a long separation of science from theological oversight. But, that wasn't the end of the story. The Galileo affair was a major turning point. It prompted centuries of reflection that would eventually lead the Church to not just accept science, but to actively champion it. Just look at this comparison. The transformation is incredible. After centuries of thinking about the whole Galileo thing, the Church's position changed dramatically. So in the 17th century, it condemned an astronomer. But in the 20th century, it was a Catholic priest, Father George Lemaître, who was the very first person to propose the Big Bang theory, the cornerstone of modern cosmology. And Lemaître's theory wasn't just, tolerated. It was brilliant. Even Albert Einstein, who at first thought the universe was static and called Lemaître's math abominable, was eventually won over. He later said it was the most beautiful explanation of creation he'd ever heard. The Church had profoundly changed. It went from condemning scientists to producing them. Okay, let's fast forward to today and see how all of this builds, because now the Church is facing a new magic that is arguably more powerful and more mysterious than anything that's come before it: artificial intelligence. And for the modern Vatican, the big wake-up call wasn't some dense theological paper. It was a viral meme. In 2023, this deep-fake image of Pope Francis in a cool puffer jacket showed everyone just how easily AI could manipulate reality. I mean, it was a harmless prank, but it revealed what they called the shadow of evil in AI's power to deceive. The challenge is also moving inside the Church itself. If we look ahead at issues the Church might soon face, you can totally imagine a near-future pontiff, let's call him Pope Leo XIV, warning priests to resist the temptation of the AI homily. Using chatbots to write their Sunday sermons. He'd likely emphasize that sharing faith is a deeply human act that you just can't outsource to an algorithm. And here is the key difference from the 15th century. This hypothetical pope doesn't frame the danger as something demonic. He frames it as something deeply human. The risk isn't a pact with the devil, it's the atrophy of the intellect, the fear that we might lose our own ability to think and reflect if we just offload it all to machines. So instead of reaching for a hammer to smash this new technology, the modern church is working to build a moral compass to help guide it. And the cornerstone of this new approach could be something like a 2025 doctrinal note called Antiqua et Nova, meaning ancient and new. It would probably be a thorough look at AI, arguing that, yeah, technology is a gift, but it's a gift that absolutely must be guided by ethics to protect human dignity and serve everyone. And this really shows their practical strategy. Through things like the Rome Call for AI Ethics, the Vatican is promoting algorithmics. The idea is basically that these 6 principles have to be baked into the very code of AI systems from the get-go. And it's not just talk. Major tech companies like Microsoft and IBM have already signed on. So after this whole 500-year journey, what's the big takeaway? What does the shift from a witch-hunting manual to algorithmics really tell us? Well, the crucial point is that evolution from a hammer to a compass. Back in 1487, the approach was to control by condemnation, and it was all driven by a fear of the demonic. In 2025, the approach is to guide through ethics, driven by a fear of human apathy in losing our own dignity. Which leaves us with a really provocative final thought. After centuries of grappling with science, heresy, and huge technological change, has this ancient institution, having learned some really painful lessons from its past, found a unique voice to help us navigate our technological future? What do you think? Has the church earned a seat at the table in the debate over AI's future? Let us know what you think down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this look at the long road from heresy to AI ethics, please help support the channel by liking, sharing, and dropping a comment. And hey, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more explainers that break down complex topics. Thanks for watching.
The Palantir has spoken, and the code is now law.